All right.
Started hitting into it, so that's good.
I'd like to call to order the Presque City Council meeting for Wednesday, September 27th, 2023. We have six out of 7 councilors present. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody, for coming to the City Council meeting this evening. The first part of our agenda this evening is a public hearing. We have 2 items in the public hearing to discuss. We'll discuss them separately. One is the approval of an automobile graveyard permit for Paul Jalbert doing business as Jalbert Auto and Salvage at 204 Chapman Road in Presque. Martin, do you have any comments?
Nothing else to mention other than staff recommends approval.
Thank you. Seeing that this is a public hearing, we'll open this to anybody from the company or from town that would like to comment on this evening. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period and ask council for comments or a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve a special permit for automobile graveyard for Paul Jalbert, DBA Jalbert Auto and Salvage at 204 Chapman Road.
Second.
It's been moved by Jeff and seconded by Mike. Is there any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? 6-0, thank you. The second item in the public hearing tonight is to approve amending Chapter 48, the General, Assistant Ordinance, Appendix A through H. Martin, any comments on that?
No, it's annually the state reaches out and they have amendments to Appendix A through H. So they have to, what the state requires is it goes through a public hearing process before adoption.
Okay. Is there anybody from the public that would like to discuss this during the public hearings portion of tonight's meeting? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and ask City Council for comments or a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the amendments to Chapter 48, General Assistance Ordinance, Appendix A to H.
Second. Moved by Craig, seconded by Gary. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? 6-0, thank you. Next item on the agenda this evening is our citizen comment section. So this is an opportunity for people from the Presque area to comment on anything that they wish. So we'll open the floor, ask you to come on up to the microphone, state your name and your address, and please limit yourself to 2 minutes. So, is there anybody that would like to discuss anything tonight? No? Don't be shy. Did we see anything in writing, Kim, or?
Not in writing. I had a phone call that a citizen was concerned about down at the gazebo. She's been seeing fans plugged in, boom boxes, phone chargers with people using the gazebo electricity down there.
I mean, just walking away from them, just leaving stuff plugged in, walking away? you mean?
They're sitting there with everything plugged in,
People
more or
have
less
that,
the homeless
No? Okay.
is using it.
Has there been any public, like police presence required or anything like that, Lori, that we know of? Nothing?
Not that they've asked for.
Probably as the days get colder, it'll start winding down, maybe.
We're plugging haters in.
Was it a complaint or just an
Very
observation?
concerned
Just a
that she's
concern.
seen quite a bit of that. She said that, some other people have made comments to her.
Lori, I would say, just having gone around there some myself, it wouldn't hurt to maybe drive a cruise around Mary's Mile. All the bridges can handle it. And maybe have some officers walk around there occasionally. This lady's not the only person that's seen things down there.
Yeah, I've seen things in there too.
Unfortunately.
Gatherings, people.
Okay. Any other citizen comments? Yes, sir?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to take this time, if we could, to do a special dedication and a presentation.
So moved.
That's what it is.
Why don't you stand at
Oh,
the
wow.
microphone and explain this?
So we'd like to do a special presentation to Martin for his retirement from the city. And this is one of the things that we knew he wanted to have. So this is a chair that's inscribed with the dates of his service from 2005. Let's see here. Get the right dates here. 2015 to 2023, Martin Puckett, City Manager, City of Presque Crest.
Oh, thank you.
So that is the first gift we have for you. The second is a dedication. And so if the chairman would come up.
I'll let you break into this and I'll speak about it.
Okay.
So in honor of, Martin's comes in a long line of outstanding city managers for the city of Presque, and I'd like to publicly thank him for all of the years of service that he has given us in his leadership and guidance. And although he gets to yard off the chair, we wanted something in the building to remind us of what Martin's done for us. So I'm going to read this plaque and then present this to Honorable Martin L. Puckett. This is a dedication of our new conference room up here on the 3rd floor. And it says, "This conference room is dedicated to Martin L. Puckett with deep gratitude for his leadership and commitment to the city of Presque, City Manager 15 through 23. So,
Oh, wow. Thank you.
congratulations.
Appreciate that.
And yeah, we'll take some pictures after the meeting, I think. Do you have any comments there, sir?
Well,
We need some tissues here, we need some tissues.
that's, thank you, council. I've really enjoyed my time working with you and definitely working with all the staff and different department heads. That means a lot. It's totally unexpected. It's been a pleasure also serving the citizens of Presque. I'll definitely miss working with each and every one of you and serving in this role. And I wish not going anywhere. I'll be right here in Presque Isle, so I'll be. I'm still one of the biggest cheerleaders that you'll have for doing good work. So thank you, council. It's been a pleasure and an honor serving. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we've still got some work to do this evening, so
Yes.
we'll go to the next item. But we could go on all night and talk about the great collaboration that we've done as a team here, and we're hopeful that the next person that fills your big shoes will be as collaborative as you are. So, again, thanks for everything.
Thank you.
The next item on the business this evening would be a presentation for our 2024 budget. This is our first hearing on the 2024 budget, so leaping right back into it right off. So, Mr. Puckett, if you'd like to start this off, and
Sure.
I'm sure Brad's got some things to say too.
I'd first like to thank all the department heads and staff that put this together. We've had a marathon of meetings the past 2 weeks, and especially to Brad. He was working on this up to midnight last night, putting the final details. So it's over 250 pages. We listened last year. Council wanted more information. The detail that was in the previous year budgets, we made sure that's in these in the budget sheets. So the very first page is something Brad and I put together. It's the introduction to the budget. So the major things that we looked at and talking with department heads is one of the major impacts is economic growth and diversification of our community, and we want to see that grow. So under Galen's leadership and under the Industrial Council, we have a very diversified economic base, and this is a cornerstone. We with being so diversified, we're protected against economic factors. It's not like we're just, I've had the pleasure of working in some mill towns. Unfortunately, if one of your major employers ends up having problems, it affects everyone drastically. Due to the fact we're so diversified, and that's the future, is diversification, we're going to be protected from some economic catastrophes. Infrastructure investments is a major part of this budget. You're going to see some information that terminal funding, Main Street redesign, and each department has some large capital requests. Property tax assessments, we do have an idea of at least 5 major developments that are going to occur in the city. Don't have exact dollar figures yet, but we estimate around the $5 million mark for investments that will come to the city before we commit taxes in June. So that will help alleviate some of the increases. State and federal funding, these departments have done great looking at ways to raise money other than through taxpayer funds. So we're going to continue that. That's evident in this terminal discussion where we've been awarded federal earmark congressional delegation spending. One of the things that we're aware of, every resident in Presque, probably everyone living in the U.S., the inflation costs that we're dealing with. Right now, we're looking at seasonally adjusted 3.7% increase over the past 12 months. So just put it in context of our $14.9 million budget. What we could anticipate is $500,000 of increased costs that we're seeing, just like all residents. The last 3 things, public safety. We've been doing monthly reports and sending them off to council about the number of calls for service we've been experiencing. Across the country, you've seen increases in calls for service, leading for the past 2 years. In August, we had 1,237 calls for service compared to the Aroostook County Sheriff's Office had 804. So looking at countywide, they've had 804 calls. We've had 1,200. So it's a significant increase in the amount of calls for service that we've seen with our police department. So in this budget document's a plan working with the police department to a method to address that increased number of calls. And they're serious calls that we're being on. It's not just frivolous calls that we've been dealing with, and I put some descriptions in here. Demographic trends, we've seen it at the last redesign for MDOT when we had the public session. I was really impressed with the amount of people that are new to the community that wanted to talk about the importance of pedestrian safety. And a lot of people that are walk based on their primary means because that's their individual choice. So being aware that the way we've always done it isn't going to work, that we need to look at more ideas. I think the Main Street redesign will deal with a lot of these changes we're talking about. And the last thing to be aware of is technological upgrades. In each department, they've again, not doing it the same method of someone coming to the town office physically, it's doing it remotely. That has increased greatly over the past 3 years, and it continues to. The amount of developers that want to deal with a paperless service based on their own time frame, not just when City Hall's open, but we've seen a lot of plans come in after hours through the weekend. There should be no secret that they love doing it that way, and they pay right online too for their plans. So the last section of this document, I wanted to identify where the major increases are. Last time there was council a lot of time is between now and when we commit taxes, and sometimes it's hard to pick out what are the actual increases. So I wanted to put this in black and white right in front of you where these major increases are, not making you go through the 250 pages through here. So we'll start on the positive side. Revenue, main state revenue sharing, the money that comes directly from the state, an increase in the 2024 budget of almost $400,000. Interest on our investments, increase of $65,000. I see Tom Power sitting in the audience. Presque Industrial Council rental revenue is increasing by $212,000. They're doing some great work up there. The other issue, increased revenues we have this year in 2023 due to vacant positions. Our projected costs were less than what we anticipated. I hate to announce an amount until we get into November. Talking with Brad, we want to see where we're sitting then, but you've seen in the monthly financials I send to council, we're over $900,000 based on increased revenues from main state revenue and vacant positions. So keep that in mind when we are getting ready at the end of the year to commit taxes, to finalize the budget. We have $900,000 that we can do the same as last year, offset some of these large capital costs. So keep that in your mind when you're looking through the budget. So
Is
that's
that net available, or have we already used some of it on different?
There has been some things that we've used, that we've discussed in several meetings throughout the year that will be used, but,
Could you get us
at the end of the year, I'll have an actual number.
Could you get us an accounting showing?
Yep.
Yeah, thanks.
Mhm.
Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, sure. That's a good question. So for expenditures, I started with the less amount and worked my way up for some of the impacts. So presidential election coming up in 2024, talking with the city clerk, we do need additional staff. And there's been some requests to make sure that we're prepared for it with additional supplies and signage that we'll need. So there's $10,000 additional than what we usually see. No surprise here, electrical costs of 9% on average, so there's $15,000 added to the various departments. Our workers' comp has estimated increase, we should know more beginning of November, that's $34,000. Water and sewer increases, of course, we've seen, whoever is on utility district. Our hydrant rental increase is estimated to be about $45,000 over last year. Our paving costs, again, we bid those out each year, but what we're estimating is a $50,000 increase just due to the same amount of paving. The same thing goes through road maintenance, the salt and the liquid calcium that we put on the roads. We're estimating $60,000 increase. Presque and the Industrial Council completely support building a new spec building. The note payment for that's going to be $73,000, but that's something I really recommend we do. Just in general, supplies through all these different departments, we've seen increase of about 4% that matches inflation. Health insurance, we'll know more about that in beginning of November, that's $100,000. Positions that we've talked about in previous meetings, I put that down, that's about $250,000 increases. Minimum wage is increasing, so we're gonna have to address that. A lot of our election workers, part-time staff throughout the year, including rec, and we have COLAs, resolving management level inequities that we discovered last month. That projection is about $325,000. Capital improvement, I broke these into separate, so I wanted to do what the operational budget increases and capital improvement. There's a lot. Egypt Road, we do have some video to show you. There's a culvert failure. There's 2 large culverts that are underneath that road, and they have collapsed. So the sidewall, the bottom and the sidewalls are completely gone. That's something we're gonna have to address next year. Luckily, it's stabilized right now, but we don't know how long that's going to be. They're estimating that to be $1 million project. What I put in the budget was recommending a 10-year note, so about $120,000 a year. There's also the form siding replacement we're hoping to get grants for. not use taxpayer funds for that. But that's a project I want to keep council aware of. Public Works has a lot of needs this year. They need an in-town plow truck, a single axle, for $255,000. I recommend using solid waste reserves like we have done in the past. They also need a new snow blower, and this is the one that they mount to a loader. It does have a separate, it's not a PTO, it's a separate engine. That's $210,000. That's how we clean the downtown. That's how we clean country roads. That needs to be replaced. And through the work of the facilities, we have identified some heating systems that need to be replaced. It's been in the works for a while now, but we're estimating around $130,000 for a new heating system for Public Works. That also goes to Public Safety Building. They're estimating around $100,000. I'm hoping to hold that off until 2025, but put half of those funds in the budget for now. Facilities also needs to replace a 75 horsepower 2010 John Deere tractor. That's estimated at 75. What is not in here is we don't have numbers for the airport terminal. I'm hoping that we'll get some more federal or state dollars to match what we've already received. And of course, with the main MDOT redesign of Main Street, we still don't have what the project's cost will that be for that. But please keep that in the back of your mind. And on the bottom of this page is, we've outlined some of these. I won't go line by line, but you can see what the increases and decreases right there on the budget. So the mill rate calculations there on the next page. And there's also what Brad was working on last night is a 5-year going back to 2019, what the past year's budgets were. So there's the revenue and expenditures, so you can easily see where we have been in the past few years. So you can use that as a comparison, kind of identify where the large increases are. If you flip to page 37, the other new addition to this budget is the large departments do have a summary page that they've put in. So again, it's to help council identify what the changes, identify what the plan is for the budget, and I think every department was able to keep it down to one page, but it gives you an idea of what this one is. The assessing department talks about what they have done for work, what their major revenue streams are, what the changes are from last year, and what the expenses are. So you can easily see they're at 2.3% increase. It lists what the total budget is, what part of that is on salaries and wages, and what the major decrease is. So you can see from this one, there's been a decrease in the mileage reimbursement of almost 23% due to the city using leased vehicles. So you can flip through, and that's in the larger departments. They all have a breakdown and an overview of that. So I'm hoping that will be a helpful thing also. Instead of just looking at a budget with no context, you have a narrative for the large departments. You can see what the changes are, so it's easier for you to make a decision through this process. So there, I'll take a break. I've spoke a lot. I wanted to give an overview of the budget and help you understand how this differs from previous year's budget.
This looks like a great improvement. A lot more info.
So concise, but sometimes less detail is better because we can pay attention to the trends. The 5-year thing, Brad, is really appreciated. Thank you for putting that together. It'll be a lot easier to spot trends. So we've taken a book that I have seen up to 600 pages in the past, and it's 242 right now. So I think we're going in the right direction as far as trying to get the correct information, make solid decisions based on information, and not have to pour through mounds and mounds and mounds of data. Great presentation. Thank you. I know it took a while to sift through that, but this is a big topic. It's important for people. Everybody wants to know, what the city's priorities are. you've got it assigned pretty well there in the first, in the introductory pages there, so I'd like to get that out on our website as fast as we can.
Sure.
At least the first 4 pages at least. It's a good starting document, so. Anybody else have any comments they wanna make during this presentation this evening?
No, I agree. And I think one of the years along the last decade here, I think it was almost 800 pages one year. It's good for the biceps, but hard on the eyeballs. So this is very nice. Great job.
Thank you.
And I'm sure that if any of us have any questions, that both yourself and Brad are available to answer questions and find some stuff. We've also, as we go along, some of these departments, we've actually gone on little field trips. And, it's one thing to say, well, that loader needs a snow blower. You don't understand what's behind it till you go on up, so we can schedule stuff like that too. So, and I'm not trying to pick on Public Works, Harley, but, it just makes our job a heck of a lot easier when we see what condition it is and go, oh, now I see why you need a new one. So, I'm sure you'll be receptive to us coming up. Yeah, great, super. Okay. Any other comments before we move on? Martin, you wanna do anything else with the presentation tonight, or just keep moving?
I guess the only other thing to add is that there are some departments that are still looking at their figures. We estimate around 30 days to perfect these. I want to make sure later on the agenda we have some appointments to make for Harley and Tyler and for Lewis. And I want to give them some time to perfect their budgets, especially with the facilities. Being brand new, I want to get them comfortable. And I apologize, there's not a lot of detail in the facilities. That's something that, frankly, we're just gonna need some time to work together. So if we had our first sort of follow-up meetings, really think giving them time to really digest, and especially with those boilers. He has a really good mind frame of what he wants to do. He just needs some time to put some quotes together so we can make those a little bit more concrete.
Good, great. Further comments, guys? No? Okay, let's move on to the consent agenda this evening, and we'll approve these as one combined motion, which is to approve the minutes from August 29th, 2023, September 6th, 2023, and the minutes of September 14th, 2023, and also to approve the 2023 warrants number 35 totaling $396,353.20. So, entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Been moved by Mike and seconded by Jeff. Is there any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? 6-0, thank you. Old business this evening, this is a tabled item for business in Presque to approve the annual license for a marijuana license to Chad Junkins doing business as Northern Euphoria LLC with a location of 11 Davis Street. Got anything you want to add, Martin?
No, council, we did just briefly, we had the public hearing last month. We had to table it. It wasn't quite ready, but happy to say that it meets all state of Maine and the local ordinances. It's ready for approval.
Okay, is there anybody from the business or from the community who would like to comment on this? None? No? All right, we'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the marijuana license to Chad Junkins, DBA Northern Euphoria LLC, a location 11 Davis Street.
Second.
Been moved by Craig and seconded by Jeff. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? 6-0, thank you. New business this evening. We're on item 7, that's the budget calendar, and we'll start again with Martin's proposal for
So council, last time I didn't do a good job putting dates together for council. I double booked October 11th. We have the MDOT Main Street redesign at Umpy at 6 p.m. I'm thinking that the next time, again, to give some of the department heads a little bit more time to fine tune the budget. I put in a proposal of October 18th. I don't know if that works for council. Let's face it, I want to make sure all council can be here. We can do all the presentations we want, but if it doesn't work out for council, if we can't get everyone here. So really, it's up to you, council, for selecting the next date, to make sure everyone can attend.
Is there anybody that has a conflict on the 18th? You guys wanna take a quick look at your calendars, decide this right off? Take a peek. This is usually where the commercial is for your television programs.
The 11th might be my only conflicting date.
So they're proposing not to have a meeting on the 11th, cause that's when the MDOT is gonna meet up at Umpy. So, the
I'm
18th,
fine.
18th good? Doug? 18, Wednesday?
Yep.
Mike?
Yeah, I'm good.
Craig?
Yeah, it's fine.
Gary? I think we're
Should be good.
unanimous there. We should have a good
Super.
attendance on the 18th. So.
Super.
What time? 5:15? Does that work?
Yeah, if that works for all council, I know
Do-
sometimes it's
Get
difficult.
started? Okay. That's gonna be in the conference room or here?
Probably here if we do presentations with
Okay.
department heads.
Alright.
Yeah, I will not.
So the next item,
spirit.
or the next meeting to discuss the 2024 budget for the city of Presque will be on Wednesday, October 18th at 5:15 in council chambers. That's a public meeting.
Correct.
Yep. Okay, so people from the public, if you want to get engaged in the budget process, come on down. Lots of seats. Anything else, Martin, you on that one?
That's
Okay,
it.
great.
Thank you.
Item 8 is our appointments. So, well, we gave you a chair, so you're working for it tonight.
I'm
so
working
you're
for
going,
it.
You're back in front of us.
So council appointed council members for the selection process of facilities manager, public works director. So this is something that we did run ads, did have applications for. And I also threw in there the interim city manager. So happy to know that the committees chose Tyler Clark as facilities manager and Harley Carmichael as a public works director. And also another committee met and requested Louis Cousins as the interim city manager, fair hearing authority, and public access officer. So kind of some different hats here, but it meets all the obligations.
Great. So, we hear a motion from somebody so we can get this official.
Mr. Chairman, I move we appoint Tyler Clark as Facilities Manager, Harley Carmichael Jr. as Public Works Director, Louis Cousins as Interim City Manager, Fair Hearing Authority, and Public Access Officer.
Second.
Been moved by Craig and seconded by Jeff. Is there any other discussion? I would just simply comment that all of these individuals have extreme experience and working knowledge in our staff. They're great team builders, and I'm happy to see them advance in their careers, particularly Tyler and Harley. Congratulations, you guys. We're looking forward to working with you as staff managers now. So, looking forward to continuing doing what you're doing now, and continue building your teams under you, because that's what it's all about. I think that makes things as successful as they are right now. So, is there anybody else would like to comment?
I'd echo those comments, and congratulations.
Yeah,
Great.
congrats.
Super. There's a motion on the floor. Any other comments?
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? 6-0. Unanimous. Thank you very much. Once again, thank you, gentlemen. Looking forward to working with you. Item 9, crosswalk indicators at State and Academy Bike Path. What's that all about?
So council, at the last meeting, we did, during public comment, it was brought up about, some of you had received phone calls or visits from residents about concerns about those two intersections off the bike path on Academy and State Street. And council wanted me to report back, they're called rectangular rapid flashing beacons, RRFB. You see those, the first one the community had was by the bike path at Umpy, and we've since installed them on Chapman Street. Council decided to put that in when we built a new community center to help children and adults cross the street. And we've also placed them on Mary's Mile further down on Chapman and on Riverside. So there's a variety of different ones that we have. Some are the push button, the sensors. Others detect when a person's coming. Unfortunately, some of those ones, they have automatic detectors. They are very sensitive, so when it snows, I think there's been a few budget meetings we had at the community center where you see them going off. Snow does send them off when it's going hard enough, and also sometimes rain. So jury's still out on that, but it definitely helps out for people that when someone runs across a road, maybe a child forgets to push it, it goes off, it detects it. So they are nice. Those cost installed around $20,000. We think we can get it less, but that's a ballpark. We do think that there's some grant opportunities through MDOT. So I listed some of the funding opportunities, safe routes to school, so definitely Academy and State Street and possibly even Blake Street might be eligible for this program, so we may be able to get these at no cost. There's also pedestrian bike facilities grants that are separate, also from MDOT, and transportation corridors for bike ped trails. So again, it's 3 different programs. They do require a 20% minimum non-federal match.
So I mean, these would be covered as part of the MDOT, the greater project that we're working on as well, right?
I think they would go out to that far, so I think what we should do is request that the October 11th have these evaluated and included. Yeah, you jumped to my motion, but that's exactly it. Let's ask them to see if they would include that. And not just on these Academy and State, but I'm wondering if it's on Blake, maybe it's in front of the high school, where you have children going back and forth from school to the parking lots. Maybe there's an incident that happened there. Oh, and before I forget, I did ask Lori to give me some figures, pedestrian incidents that we've had. Back in 2019, there was a pedestrian that was struck on the corner of State and Dudley. That was back in August 28th of 2019. On December 19th, 2020, 3 years ago, a 14 and 17-year-old pedestrian was crossing in the crosswalk on Academy, and they were struck by a vehicle. And August 31st, 2021, on the corner of Academy and Hardy, a bicyclist was struck by a vehicle on Academy. It failed to yield as it crossed southbound from Hardy. So those were the 3 instances they've had. We just went back 5 years, but those were the 3 that really stuck out.
None of those were on these spots, so.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct. So, council, I think that's. I think Councilor Chassie hit the nail on the head. Let's ask MDOT on the 11th to include researching these on those, particularly in those 2 areas, but maybe they would identify other areas too that might be possible.
Yeah, probably that's first step. Second step is grant opportunities. Grants take 4, 6, 8 months ahead of projected construction. Yeah, so those can be probably submitted at any time.
Yes.
Probably ought to identify some 2 or 3 of these priorities, 20 grand a piece for the blinky lights. You know, no one's going to say that this is not a worthwhile thing. It's just a matter of cost and priorities.
Yes.
And if we can get some matching funds, it makes, you know, instead of doing 2 projects, maybe it's possible to do 3, or 2 instead of 1, so. They don't all have to be done at once, but it'd be nice to eventually have a working plan, to get these all done, especially along the bike path route. Guys, comments? Feel like this is the Martin and Kevin show tonight here. All right, thanks for that. I didn't know how much money they were, so now I have a ballpark idea. So thanks for bringing that back to us. Item 10, road paving on city streets. I think there's been some discussion lately. We've got some streets that have some nice black asphalt on them, and people don't understand how come this street gets done and how come that street. So we've got that item on the agenda tonight to go through, familiarizing ourselves once again with what the process is, so that's why it's in front of us tonight.
So council, I did ask, I reached out to Dana and, working between the budget, departments were busy, so it's a short memo. It's 1 pager just to kind of get the conversation started. But I'd like to possibly have Dana and maybe Harley come and talk. I think it'd be
Yep.
helpful for the public to understand this process too.
Yep, that'd be great. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, council. Public Works uses a process or a instrument called the Road Surface Management System. So it's known in the business as RSMS. Basically, it is a spreadsheet of all the streets and roads in Presque. So there's approximately 140 roads and streets that we pave. We divide those up into what's called segments. So for instance, on 2nd Street, we go from Blake to Church. We call that segment 1 on 2nd Street and so forth, even though 2nd Street goes beyond that to Academy, so that we can keep track of changing pavement conditions or widths and so forth. So there's about 250 segments of street and road in the road surface management system. I started in Public Works part-time in 2011. We looked at some canned programs, RSMS back then. One came from the state of Maine. It was inexpensive, a couple $100. It didn't begin to do what we needed to do, especially on costs. Talked to Public Works in Caribou. They had one that they created, liked a lot, and we did a version of that. So just to say, there's more than one way to do it, but we created something that was for us. There are some out there. I get a salesman now, know pretty well, I guess, calls twice a year. There's video programs with artificial intelligence, produce great reports for tens of thousands of dollars. So we have a nice time talking and then say, see ya. We feel like we have a good program and can't really justify spending tens of thousands for a nice product, but maybe more than what we need. So in our system, we take each segment and then put in the length, width, depth of pavement that we intend to apply, generate how many tons the asphalt sold by the ton, put in a unit price, and get a cost. We add in what year the street or segment was previously paved. So typically our overlays, so an overlay is just hot top over old hot top. Typically we do 1.5 inches. 1.5 inches will last on average 12 years. So our system is basically a 12-year cycle. 2 years ago, we were doing chip sealing. we had issues with getting a contractor to do chip sealing. So last year we had no bidders. There's only 2 in the county. So we decided to go all paving. It is more expensive, but you end up with a better product. Some other communities have done the same thing, so we're not the first to do that. Chip seal is basically kind of an armor coat, but the roads that we were chip sealing, we now do a 3/4 inch overlay. So most of the time, we're doing a 3/4 inch overlay on rural roads with light traffic, and 1.5 inch overlay on streets and roads that have heavier traffic. So we're running in the same RSMS, Road Surface Management System, basically a 12-year cycle for some streets, about 2/3 of them, and a 7-year cycle with the thinner overlay for the others. When we just went through this process, Harley, of preparing for next year. So you just have received the budget tonight. So we go into the road surface management system, look at what is planned for next year, maybe make some adjustments, and put that into the budget, assume a unit price, come up with a cost. It's in the budget. The list of streets that we plan to do is in the budget. It's a page in there. Typically bid in March. Try to get ahead of everybody else. You want the plants, there's 4 possible bidders up here for that. You want to get in before they get busy and they have all the work they need. So we bid in March, and based on the price, we can adjust our paving list. So that's in the contract. We can add, delete, change streets depending on our needs. So if we see a street like, oh, we should delay this one and move this one up, then we do that. This year we had lower prices than last year, so we did some parking lot paving. We did the one off Main Street and City Hall, so, and a sidewalk on Central Drive. Kind of a couple of unique situations. Sometimes we plan to do something, but one of the worst things that can happen is pave a street and then have utilities district come through and excavate, or contractor excavate for a sewer pipe or a water main. So we always talk to the utilities district and coordinate with them on paving so that we don't pave and then have it excavated within the next year or 2. Typically, we do 8 miles a year paving, 24 feet wide, a mile long, 1.5 inches is $120,000. So if it was all 1.5 inches, 8 miles, you're approaching $1 million. It might be less, it might be more, again, depending on the thickness of the hot top. Sometimes we work with DOT, so sometimes people complain, and not all of the streets in Presque belong to the city of Presque. Some of them belong to the state of Maine. And sometimes they don't have all the funding they need, so in some cases we share with them on a grant program, 50-50, and Central Drive and Park Street are examples of that this year. Those are on it's called a Municipal Partnership Initiative grant, and added sidewalk also on Central Drive. I guess that's my notes. Do you have questions?
You touched on one thing, but I wanted it to be clear that I believe Route 10 Academy Street is not a
Town way.
it's not a town way. That the 4-lane on Main Street to a certain degree. Would you like to explain some of that, or is it from the bridge all the way to the urban compact line?
So the cities in the kind of bigger population areas like Presque, we have what's called a compact urban area. It's the built-up area. So inside the compact urban area, the black and white diamond signed areas, the city's responsible for maintenance. So we're responsible for street sweeping and paint striping and patching. We're not responsible for paving or storm drainage repairs. So Route 1 is a state aid. Academy State Route 10 is state aid. And some streets that are not numbered, like Eastern Road, Academy Street, State Route 10, are still state aid streets. Believe it or not, Second Street is a state aid. And as I mentioned, Park Street is a state aid. Central Drive is state aid. Riverside's a state aid. There's a lot of them. So the state is responsible to pave them. But we receive funds for plowing and sweeping and striping and patching, maintenance.
And those are the roads that you're talking about, you're doing 50/50 stuff with?
Correct. So some of them, for instance, next year, Maine DOT is going to pave Academy Street. And on North Street, which is a big deal, two major streets. And they're doing a part of Airport Drive from Skyway to Central. So
100% them covering.
yeah, those I mentioned, they're doing 100%.
Are they doing just the traffic lane or the whole road, like all the way to the sidewalk?
It's it depends, Mike. It depends. So the last time they did Academy, they did what we call the travel lanes.
Yeah.
They just did as a cost-saving measure. But if they have the money, they'll go curb to curb. So
When you do the 50/50 grant thing, I know you had explained a few years ago that you basically get reimbursed like the next year or something along those lines. Is it almost just kind of a given, like they just take your word that the road needs to be done, you're kicking in 50%, we're gonna honor your grant request, or is it possible that somehow ever gets denied?
So you apply and they approve, and you're gonna receive the money. It's very competitive. There's a lot of other communities like us in the state. So they're on a fiscal year, so we might pave this year and get the money next, but we will get the money,
Okay.
the 50%. Yeah,
But you have to apply for that.
you do.
Okay. You
They-
can't just say, hey, state, we did this, give us our 50% next year. It's gotta be,
Approved beforehand, right? Yeah. Yeah.
And
Hey, I wanted to thank you for doing Missile Street, Lake Shore Drive, and Central Drive. Three that I use the most. Appreciate it. And kudos on not doing the chip seal, because it's garbage.
And you're not the only one that doesn't like chip seals, so.
Yeah, because we did that out on Lake Shore Drive a few years ago, and it didn't last very long at all.
Right.
Yeah, this is a lot better, I think, what you guys did this year.
Good.
Appreciate it.
Good to
your,
hear.
the overlay process, you know, say you're doing every 12 years, is there a certain point where you've overlaid it like 4 times and, you know, obviously that's decades down the road, but say like these side streets like Barton or something,
Sure.
I mean, is there at some point where it just doesn't work like that anymore?
Well, particularly where it's curbed, so we mill out, if you keep overlaying, pretty soon we call curb reveal, how much of the curb is left, pretty soon the curb is gone, because there's so much pavement, so it's called milling. So we did that on Central Drive this year. A couple of years ago, We did it out here in Blake and Griffin. It isn't just when it's thick, it's sometimes when you have other issues. Central Drive had other issues, and we wanted to remove what was there to avoid what's called reflective cracking, where what's underneath kind of reflects up through and you have the same mess on top, so.
So that adds to the cost?
It does, yeah, there's a cost to it, yeah. The good news is we keep what's called the millings. We keep the millings and use those for some projects, but it's an extra step, so it does cost more.
But assuming you don't have a curb issue, you could have 4 times of 1.5 inch overlay and it's still, the integrity is fine. It's not like, you know, you can't have 6 inches of hot top or it's gonna start cracking more, dipping or anything like that. As long as kind of the,
Yeah, hot mix asphalt, HMA, has strength to it as opposed to chip seal. So yeah, the more of it is there, the stronger it is to a point. So if you look at Main Street, it's a state route, actually U.S. route. It has a severe rutting issue, even though it's got probably 8 or 10 inches of hot top. It's got an issue with the subbase, with the gravel base materials. So Maine DOT is working on a redesign of Main Street. That's all tied into this PPI, the Main Street redesign. So that'll be looked at.
Would it be possible on our website to put somewhere in that 240 pages is a list of streets in Presque? Let's put that on the website that's under proposed discussion for next year. So if people want to find out what streets are going to be on there, they can go to the city website and see what's being proposed for 2024. All right.
and as far as you know, that 50/50 grant thing is what the standard is going to be now with these state aid roads.
There's a couple of technicalities. It's based on your tax value, so we're in a larger community, so the most we can get is 50%. If you're in a smaller community, you can actually get a larger percentage. I think it goes up to 70%. But if Maine DOT approves it, and they always have, they've always approved them for us, because their office is right here in Presque, so they see the need. If they approve it, the money will be there, will be reimbursed.
Well, where I was going with that, that's still a relatively new program, which came about because the state was crying poverty, saying they didn't have the money to pave it in the proper cycle. Is that still expected, or have you seen any legislation that they're planning to reverse that and actually take on 100% of their promised expense?
Well,
Nothing you've seen then.
We've had some conversations. Their reply is, they're still, I think, 67 million short. So in the state of Maine, Department of Transportation, to be where they think they need to be, they need $67 more million. I think their budget's like 600 million. So they need like 10% more than they have right now. So basically, you know, it's just another level of government. It's, if you only have so much money, you have to just do your best with it. And that's where they're at. So they pave the major streets, and the rest just don't, there's just not enough money to do it. So that's a good part of that municipal partnership initiative is the city hears enough complaints and you're willing to put in half, the street will get paved. So.
Good. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Great comments. Good presentation. Harley, is there anything you want to add to that at this point? Okay, good deal. We'll save you for future ones. Yeah. Move on to the next item on the agenda, which is building permit comparisons. it's been brought up about, I think, I'll introduce this a little bit. People that are under construction, there's been some comments about, you know, why is Presque charge this and I can do this in other communities for that price? So, we asked code enforcement officer to review where we're at and what we're charging and what other communities charge. And, so we've got a presentation here, so, we'll let, Martin and Tim, lead us through that.
Evening, council. How are you guys?
Good.
Let's see if we can get this set up. So, you received the memo. I'll run down through it real quick with some highlights, and then field any questions. So, as you saw in the memo, there's still quite a few towns that split it, although vast majority do it a little bit differently. We base our permit fee off per thousand cost of construction costs. But a lot of other places do it off square footage. So there we go. I've got the spreadsheet up on the TVs for you guys. So you can kind of see that they do it both ways. Almost everybody has a minimum. I was pleased to find that a few of them actually do it the same way we do it, and they use the same fees for like renovations. One of the things that we don't do is an impact fee. So you might see that some of these towns have a really a considerably less amount of what they charge, but they make it up in permit fees. One of the permit fees, and I only listed the ones that were like directly right there on the open. I didn't go looking for them. One of them here is Bangor. So whatever your project cost is, you can add $84.50 to it for impact fees. And again, that's just what I found like up front. There was actually a story ran in the Bangor Daily right after I did this research about impact fees in Portland. So one of the other things I highlighted in here was the inspection process for residential, for commercial. When I do residential inspection, it's pretty straightforward. I walk in, I might do a few of them on any residential building. Smaller renovation projects, I might do one. Where commercial, I'm there multiple times, whether it's a small commercial or a large one. Some of you guys have had inspections that I've been, and I'm in and out quite a bit. Some projects, if they have good management, isn't needed as many. Sometimes you end up with a lot more. So from the spreadsheet, you can see that on the bottom, I listed in yellow what our numbers were for those comparable projects. In the green is what average is. Okay. Probably help if you can see it. There you go. What's in the green is what average is. So on the residential side, in the project for 1,500 square feet and $150,000 building, we were just over the average. We're over the average a little bit more on the commercial side. And again, take into account impact fees. I'm willing to bet majority of these towns, especially ones downstate, have them, but they're not listed up front in their permitting. They get tacked on somewhere else in the process. On the 18,000 square foot, $2.2 million building, which is a project inquiry that we've had in the office, so like that's a legitimate project that we could see sometime in the future. You can see again our project, the average is higher, but I'm willing to bet that you would have impact fees of substantial amounts that would reflect our permit not being as much as it, difference wouldn't be as much as you expect. I think that's the highlights.
Tim, can you explain what an impact fee is earmarked for?
So impact fees can be earmarked for different things. They can be for road construction, they can be for parks and rec, they can be, sometimes they're allocated for certain things, so you may have one of the towns, and I don't know if it's Bangor right off the top of my head, but one of them was actually had like a $5,000 fee for impact for water and sewer. So that's to go to compensate for building infrastructure, whether you need it or not, part of your project. When they expand that road down further or whatever, you're gonna end up building more infrastructure. These projects are paying for it, whether they needed it or not. So that's what an impact fee, and again, it can go for water and sewer, it can go for parks and rec, it can go for streets, road buildings. I did research brewers a little bit. I couldn't begin to tell you how to figure it out. It's based on traffic counts of adjoining streets with fees listed for each one. So again, a lot of theirs looked like it went directly to street maintenance and repair, but other ones I found actually went to parks and water, sewer, and other necessities within the city.
So we're probably a little more fixed and upfront, and we're treating everybody equitably, whereas a Bangor or a Brewer, it could be whatever street you're on, whatever traffic count is, whatever they wanna do for impact fees.
Right.
So they could basically they can cut a separate deal for everybody.
So so much of, like, if you come in to do development here in Presque Isle, we have a site plan fee that we charge to review the original site plans. And then from there is your building permit fee. There's nothing else. Without some random thing popping up. Whereas in a lot of these other towns, you're gonna have it. I will say that the locals, when I say locals, there's the top 5 or 6 places. Those were like our local area. I didn't find that anybody did impact fees here locally, but I suspect in the future they will start. So.
Okay.
All right, that is a good presentation. That's what we asked about. So thanks
Yeah.
for bringing that info to us.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, guys.
I think there's a sentence there saying you're recommending that there not be any changes.
Yeah, we recommend that there's no changes. One thing that we don't hear about is what stuff costs. One thing that I've come to learn in this position is that the businesses, when they come into town, permit fees are not make or break. They want to know what it is, how it's figured, and that's it. If it's $100, it's $100. If it's 100,000, it's 100,000. It's the cost of doing business. We have not run into a point where somebody's like, well, the permit fee is too much. That story in the Bangor Daily, that the impacts fees, like they had done a bunch of work, and then the impact fee was a surprise fee a year into the process, which, according to the story, they weren't going to be able to make, but I don't know.
Okay.
So that's what the story was.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Tim, guys? Or
No?
yep, Galen, go for it. Thanks, Tim. Good job.
Thank you, Tim. That was a good overview and presentation. The other thing I wanted to just add to make you all aware with development, I just flew back from New York City from the Harvard Club. They were having discussions on housing developments, and the 2 items that came up when a developer is looking at your community is, what's your processing time to get this up and running? And it's also, can you mitigate the risk for us to actually make this project happen? So we had some good conversations in New York City with some potential investors that are interested in the housing project that's off on Federal Street. But those were the 2 items that they really saw as crucial. And in the city of Presque Isle, when I tell investors that it takes anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks for a building permit to be issued, and for a site plan to go through the approval process 2 to 4 weeks, their mouths drop. Because in Portland and other places, it's months before they actually get that approval and that review. And how I joked about it with everyone in the room, you know, and there's folks in Georgia, there's folks in New Jersey that are there. I tell them, look, we have 6 months of winter. We don't have a long time for construction season, so we need to streamline this process and get things running. And so I'm proud that with our economic development department, we do a primary focus on economic development projects to make sure those projects get reviewed as soon as possible and processed as quickly as possible, so we can, you know, bring more jobs and expand the tax base. Regarding the permit fees, I wanted to mention we did hit a historic milestone this year in collecting. The permit revenue is now offsetting all the salaries of our department for this year. So that's a great narrative that you can share with the constituents, that your economic development activity is not costing the taxpayers directly. And I think that's a great narrative that now town managers in the surrounding towns that you saw have lower fees, they're asking us, how you're doing this? How are you making this all work? And I think Presque is starting to shift that narrative where they're starting to realize we need to process things a lot quicker and be more business friendly. So hats off to all the council for what you do and entrusting us with the resources necessary to get the job done.
Doug?
What, these cities that take months and months to, do they give you any rough idea, like, why? Are they just not staffed appropriately? Are they, you know, almost doing it intentionally or something? Or?
So they have professional planners on staff, and those planners sometimes are a lot more cautious, and they go through things at a minute pace, and so that's generally they have larger planning staffs that deal with that.
Okay, so it's not so
Yep.
much their backlog, they're seemingly spending a lot
Right.
more time on it,
Right.
critiquing it, or?
Yes. And so, like, I've seen discrepancy letters from other towns where it's like 50 pages of them just critiquing the plans. And for us, like, we have set standards in the land use code, we follow them, and if there's a discrepancy, we let the planning board make the ultimate decision and we move on. We're not gonna keep holding things up just because, so.
So
question.
we've been saying for a few years now that housing's a big priority for us, and we know that we're not alone. It's in almost every community, big and small, in the state. And now front page headlines have been mostly recently a curbing and a pulling back on housing development because of density, traffic issues. Bar Harbor's definitely been in the newspaper quite a bit on MDI. Portland, they're suggesting, certain people that are running for office is suggesting that they abandon parking ordinances for the sake of building housing immediately. I don't see us in that doing the same thing here. We're still trying to build things with a certain number of parking spaces in front of them. We haven't changed any of those rules. We still have some significant space to build out on within the community. So while we're trying to be as aggressive as some of these other communities, we're not willing to, at this point, not that I've heard anyway, we want to bend the rules and say, yeah, just park on the street somewhere, because we know we have a snow removal issue in the wintertime. So
Right.
we're going to continue along the way, but do it as responsibly as we can to our neighbors and to respecting their environment, the snow removal process, and all that stuff.
And,
So,
you know,
want to
with-
comment on that?
Absolutely. You know, that's something that I thoroughly enjoyed the way Presque has now transformed itself in reviewing these types of commercial projects. We include the fire department, we include the police department, we include the city engineer, public works, the city assessor. Everyone's brought to the table, and that's the other reason, you know, I think a lot of towns don't realize that the staff time from the commercial site plan review process, these are department heads. They are paid exceptionally well, but they are all looking over these plans to make sure that for each of their department operations, there's not going to be a negative impact and more cost to the taxpayers down the road. And so that's been helping to mitigate some of those future improvement costs that we might need for traffic and environment and parking and all those things. So, yep.
Thank you very much,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thanks, Gil.
Sense that we should be moving along, so item 12, application for a pole location on Marston Road.
Council, both of these applications are from Pioneer Wireless Incorporated, doing business as Pioneer Broadband. Both great stories. They received grants from the Home for Maine Connectivity Authority. They're constructing fiber. So one of the stretches is going to be on Marston's Road. I believe there's, I think that there's a total of 19 poles there. And on Allen Road, a total of 8 poles, I believe. So these areas, these residents who live on these roads will be getting fiber coming to their homes. This has been a long stretch. We've been working on this for a number of years, and happy to say that they're finally going to be installing fiber in these areas that are currently underserved or not even served at all. So these are both great applications. They've been very receptive. Public Works did see some issues with 2 of the poles on Marston's Road, and they agreed to move them further out of the right-of-way, so it's not going to be an issue for snow removal. So staff recommends approval for both of these.
So staff recommends approval, and it's city council to motion to approve the application as presented. So I'll make that motion for item 12. And seconded by Jeff. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Anybody want to take?
Mr. Chairman, I'd move we
13?
also do the same for 13. Move the poll application to approve, looks like PIO 2023-091202 for Allen Road.
Thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Craig. Motion by Craig, seconded by Mike, excuse me. It's a long day. All those in favor? Opposed? 6-0, thank you. That brings us to the conclusion of our agenda this evening, and the next item is our manager's report.
Council, there's one thing that I didn't have quite ready for the agenda. It was brought up during the citizens' comment, and it was about Central Drive and additional lighting. Unfortunately, during that segment that's not lit, we do not have any utility poles, so we're still talking about what we can do for alternatives for lighting in that area. But the council was 100% right. There's no lights before you get to Edgemont because there's no utility poles. So it wasn't just as simple of saying we're going to put some LED lights on these poles. We actually need to construct out there.
Thanks.
Let's do solar.
It works, right?
I don't know.
The sun. Daytime, it's lit.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
you go.
That's all I had to report.
Okay. Announcements this evening. Before we're even seeing a lot of our trees turn orange, we're talking about ice at the forum. Ice is gonna go into the forum October 10th. Public skating will begin on October 11th. Creative arts projects can be picked up at the Heuristic Center Mall from 11 to noon on October 14th. Magnetize Maine will be held at the Umpy Campus Center October 20th from 7:45 in the morning to 4:30 in the afternoon. The city currently has the following employment vacancies: firefighter, paramedic, public works truck driver, forum admin, event coordinator, forum custodian, and a rec programmer. If you have an interest in these jobs, please come down to City Hall and talk to Kelly, our HR person. She's located here on the 3rd floor. We have the following vacancies for boards and committees: assessment review, 2 positions. They're both 1-year alternates. The audit committee, 1 4-year member. Zoning board, 1 3-year member and 1 1-year alternate. Planning board, we have 1 position open as a alternate. Rec and parks, we have 2 positions, both 1-year alternates. Downtown revitalization has a 4-year membership available, 1 person there we're looking for. So if you want to be part of the downtown rejuvenization and revitalization and the public process with the redo coming up, that's a good committee to get on. Have your voice heard. The next regularly scheduled meeting of the Presque City Council will be on Wednesday, November 1st at 6 p.m. with an executive session preceding at 5 o'clock in the council chambers. There is no other business before us tonight. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Been moved by Chris.